Has anything been said about welcome to country? Look, I don't mind.
No. You've got it working tonight? It's just started. It's now. We haven't set up a table. Okay, where do you get a table? What have we brought up? Yeah, well, so I'll stay here in time as the time and help you with that. That's up and running. I just got to set the angle.
Pointing back at us at the moment.
Yeah.
It's probably fairly good there.
We need him on a separate table, guys.
Oh,
I'm going to get something in a minute. Just let me
all right, I'll find something around.
I can't find anything out there, that's fine. Maybe just 2 chairs in the doorway and they can...
I might, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Right.
You see it far back there.
That's Joe Jenkins, the
Might just be us.
Oh, it's just, well, that's what's wrong with the range of beach and all that.
But I just read that to build more housing.
Oh, yeah, it's on stage. Yeah.
Don't pick up the Oh, yes, please.
That's right.
Friday, I saw it advertised.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well,
You might have even more time.
But that's true. Interesting. I was going to say I'll recognise the name.
Sort of saying things to each other and just go over the top of my head. So when I
Get excited. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, they come. I mean, it's hard to give up all the time. Hello. That's exactly right. Yes, it is.
hello.
No, I can't see them. 15.
With those support measures to protect forests from logging.
So the obligation council
That's the
What's that?
I just had a microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just going to check the signals. So we have had a. Mine's on the right and I was getting worried about you. I was
I just sort of so good.
Testing.
Come and meet Rob. Rob? Yes. This is Luke from the newspaper.
Okay, how are you?
You've seen you a few times now.
Have you?
I just haven't met you yet.
It's going to be your first question.
Yeah, so we'll be a little while before we get to
No,
that
no, that's
question. You've
fine,
got
yeah.
it. How long, when have you got to get away?
Well, I was gauging it based on what you did as well. So you're going to do introductions, introductory remarks, and then questions.
You'll be the first question.
Yeah.
So you're probably 6:30, before 7, I think.
Yeah, and that's fine.
That's fine.
I was trying to get away at 7. But if it's 7:05, it's what it is.
I tell you, it's only 30
Yeah,
tonight.
it's
So
a
I'd
quick
say-
one, and I'm happy to take it on notice as well because it is an unexpected question. So, and they all know that.
We'll see how we go.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Because it's very,
Oh, is this the one that?
yeah, but, so, and then the green light comes on after that. So with these guys, they want something to do. So I'll. So no light on this one. No. Test. Test. It's just a little bit slow. When the red light goes out.
There might be some time for them.
Yeah, I heard him talking. I don't know. I'm not touching.
Well, I'll be here just for when we ask the questions from the audience, and then I'll come back, okay? So I'll
And
be
if
up
you
and
don't, I'm going to hit you on the head.
You worry about the button.
I'll do that. And I haven't got my bill tonight. I've got to do this. So you're going to be in charge of that.
I'll take care of that.
Thank you. What's this here for?
That is what's recording the YouTube video.
Ah.
So we need to not talk while it's on because you can hear it right now. So that's anecdotes about Margot.
You tell me when you're ready.
I think we're as ready as we can be. I haven't heard from Angus. We might want to just announce that we're trying to get a hold of TV and talk out.
We'll get things on the way.
Yep.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending tonight. The fourth of the Meet Your Candidates meetings that we've had, or I really shouldn't say we, because I'm actually not a member of the Hastings Residents Association. They've volunteered me to help out, and I've enjoyed every last minute of it. Now, you will notice there's only 3 people out the front, and it's this fabulous TV screen. We've been trying to get in touch with Hamish Tubman from the Labor Party. He's away with work commitments, and we were hoping he'd be able to attend online. That appears unlikely at this stage, but if he appears by magic later on, we'll ask him some questions. So what I firstly like to do is just let each candidate introduce themselves and their team before we get the main part of this evening underway. So we'll do that now, and then when they've done that, I'll talk to everybody about how the evening's going to work, so everybody's got an idea of how things will flow. So because Hamish isn't here, I might just start with Nick, just to introduce himself and his team, and we'll just go straight along the table there, and then after that we'll be back to me.
Do you want me to turn it on?
So 3 minutes? 3 minutes?
No. Just introduce yourself.
A quick hello.
And your team.
Mayoral candidate Nick Lipovac. My team is Team Lipovac, and that includes also locals being John Bailey, Ellen Creppers, and also Luke Garrell. Gee, I've forgotten their names after a couple of weeks. Quite incredible in all these meetings. So that is Team Lipovac. Thank you.
A bit squashy.
Lauren Edwards with the Greens. We have a team of 4, and tonight with me is Stuart Watson and Jane McIntyre. We also have Les Mitchell, who couldn't be here tonight. And Rachel Shepherd, leading Team Shepherd, Group B. Number 2 on our ticket is Lisa Interman. Number 3, Kingsley Searle. And 4, Linda Elbon.
Looks like it might be one of those nights for microphones. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rob.
It's flashing.
I'll check that in a minute for you. My name is Rob. My surname is Phil. I do not yet live in the area, technically. I made a point of mentioning to people I'll actually be voting in the Tamworth Council elections, but I'm looking forward to living here permanently in the very near future. Now, as promised, I'm just going to go through how this evening's going to work, so that everybody's got an idea of what the proceedings will entail. The first part of the session will be each of our three leading candidates, so the team leaders, will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves and their policies. We do have a timer on them, so you might hear a little buzz. Could you buzz that timer? Thank you. You might hear a little buzz at 3 minutes. That's just so the candidates know that they've got 15 seconds or so to wrap up and hand over to the next candidate. Now, once they've all introduced themselves and had their time talking about their policies, we're going to go to questions. Now, we have quite a few questions on notice. I think we're up to about 11. So hopefully after those 11 questions, there'll be time for some questions from the floor. We just have to see how things go because we already have quite a few questions. As always, we're here to listen and learn, and the idea is that we'll probably hear some things we really like, and we'll probably hear some things that we disagree with. So I ask that you all be respectful. If you hear things that you totally love, maybe you'll vote for those people. If you hear things that you totally don't want to happen, well, they probably won't get your vote. But there's certainly plenty of room for you to express your opinion at the ballot box rather than vocally here. So what I'd like to move on to now is the 3 minutes per group leader. We still haven't found...
Roll. This one works.
I've been given another microphone, so I'll hand it over. And we're going to start with opening remarks from Nick, then followed by Nick Lipovac, then followed by Rachel Shepherd, and then followed by Lauren Edwards. 3 minutes each.
Have we done a test? Oh, we have. Very good. Okay. Let's see if I can improve on my intro from a few seconds ago. So I have lived in the Hastings for 21 years and 18 of those working either for 2MCFM, now Triple M, and also Radio 531. In between, there was a few years at Holiday Coast Credit Union. Excuse me. I've been chair of the Council Sporting Fund Committee for the past 15 months, but I've been on the committee itself for more than 12 years. Heavily involved over the years in both senior and junior local cricket, as association president, a club secretary, and also a junior team rep, manager, and also coach. I was on the Oxley Oval Clubhouse Construction Committee. I had a lot of fun and games there, working with council, who kept moving the goalposts every time we wanted to try and complete the project, and that took 10 years. Named the 2019 Hastings Sporting Volunteer of the Year. But I think one of my proudest achievements was coordinating the first 10 years of fundraising to purchase paediatric equipment for our local hospitals through, you might recall, the Give Me 5 for Kids campaign at 2MCFM that involved Port Macquarie, Wauchope, Kempsey and Maxwell hospitals. I have volunteered in the last 2 decades at dozens of community and charity and sporting events, and I'm also part of a team to win a couple of business awards. On a personal note, celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary later this month. We've got a couple of grown-up kids and we're paying off the mortgage on our first home, so pretty standard stuff, really. So for my team, just briefly, John Bailey, as I mentioned before, 40 years in the Hastings, a local from Bob's Creek. That's right, Jono? Just checking. Just up the road. Ellen Kripaz, who's currently in Sydney at a funeral. She's a community leader, promotes locals and local businesses and charity events, but also has 13 years of experience in government initiatives and stakeholder engagement. And then you've got Luke Garrell. Where's Big Luke? There you go. I only notice when you stand up because you're 7 foot tall. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. You might know Luke as the golf pro of the Kew Country Club, a big advocate for sports and small business. And like the rest of the team, we're all very keen to make sure that council is catching up on its infrastructure needs for the current demand as well as for future planning. So as we know, there are many issues, and our team want to focus on, well, we'll mention a few of them, but there are so many things we need to get right once we get into that new term. And that includes in this LGA that lack of social and affordable housing for long-term locals to help them out, as well as essential workers that we need moving into the area. I'd like to see council provide some greater incentives to increase the development of more 1 and 2 bedroom homes in our region. We've got to make that significant progress this term to get on top of our backlog of infrastructure needs, including those roads and footpaths and water and sewage. As we know, Again, we came into this term, we were told 6 or 7 years behind already. I dare say we've really only scratched the surface in that last 2.5 years, so we really need to make a concerted effort. And at the same time, we must be financially responsible. And I think that's a good place to end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Proud to announce that I'm leading the Greens ticket as a mayoral candidate, and that I'm running with these fine people behind me. The Greens are dedicated and passionate to the Port Macquarie Hastings council area, and I've been a councillor for the past 3 years. Stuart's a renewable energy consultant and passionate advocate for increasing active transport and public transport. Jane is a retired school teacher and community worker and publishes a local quarterly Inklings paper. And Les has a background as an ecologist and has an extensive knowledge of the natural landscapes of our region. As the mayoral candidate, the Greens mayoral candidate, I emphasise the need for a council that listens, acts and delivers for the whole community to ensure that all individuals, including people living with disabilities and those experiencing disadvantage and homelessness, are heard. The Greens believe that responsible governance requires a commitment to our community and our environment, both the natural and the built. This term, I feel that I could evidence the way that I've already been working towards these things, and it's what a Greens ticket on council would continue to pursue. And I'll give you some examples of some of those things that we would like to do next term. Reinvigorate community engagement partnerships and committees. Continue to pursue active action to reduce traffic congestion, such as new roads and carpool to school programs. Work to reinstate the climate emergency declaration and increase resilience planning. Increase solar installation uptake and battery opportunities for our community. Secure an increase in housing choice and affordability for all household budgets. Continue to push for identifying and protecting high environmental value land and koala corridors. Secure the trial of 1 or more free electric buses for our local government area. Advocate for 100% allocation of the environmental levy to the environment. Pursue, again, a higher standard of reporting that councillors must make about their interests. Advocate for genuine concession rates across a range of services for our community. Increase the delivery of shared pathways and active transport infrastructure, and advocate for a revenue task force to find additional income for council other than rates and fees. So I thought I would give you some of the practical things that we would be pursuing in the next term of council, rather than just tell you about policies. What does that actually look like? So these are the sorts of things that you'll see if you get a Greens on council.
Thank you, Lauren and Nick, and thank you all for coming and being a part of our local democracy, hearing what we have to say and hopefully forcing our hand to listen to you more in the future as well. So hopefully you don't have to force our hand. So I'm Rachel Shepherd, leading Team Shepherd for council. I'm not running as a candidate for mayor, and no member of our group is. We want to be part of a 9-person elected council who can think independently, each of us, but work together for the common good of our community. And that's how councils are meant to work. There's not meant to be voting blocks. There's not meant to be certain councillors and therefore the community who elected them locked out of decision making. There's meant to be 9 councillors, 8 and a mayor, who are elected to represent parts of the community and bring their voices to each decision that's being made. So rather than block voting, what we want to see is a genuine attempt at consensus building, where even if you can get a decision through with 5 or with 4, instead you actively seek out input from those who have differing views and think, what do we have to do in order to get 7 councillors to support this? And know that this decision could have been supported by all of the people that voted for those 7 councillors. And so that's a part of the approach that you'll see tonight with the ticket that we've curated for you to look at and vote for Group B coming to the election. So what we stand for, partially on the back of this last council and looking forward to what's needed to secure good decision making for our community for the future, is accountability, teamwork and a focus on future readiness. So accountability can't be a fluffy word, it needs concrete action in order to bring it to life. So we're talking about councillors being required to document when they have meetings with developers. We're talking about strengthening the reporting requirements as to councillors' conflicts of interest, or our financial interests, and making sure that council is able to refuse visibly incomplete statements of councillor interests, a notion that was voted down in this outgoing council. So when we come to teamwork, I think I've described that already when it comes to the councillor body, actually looking at how we bring together diverse views to make a better decision for our community. But it's also about having a council that builds a better relationship with staff, with community, with industry, and with our MPs, of course, looking all levels of government to be able to deliver for our community. Finally, we have a focus on future readiness, and that comes down to responsible financial management, very pertinent after this term of council that we've just had. It comes down to a real focus on infrastructure delivery. We can't keep on getting distracted by weird ad hoc decisions. The focus needs to be on how we're ready with our water security, our transport infrastructure, our sewer, not pretty, but important. We can't get distracted by weird ad hoc decisions and have to remain focused on that infrastructure delivery. And finally, we need to be able to deliver the growth of our community where and how it works. And that's about sustainable development. Looking at how we do things in a way that balances needs appropriately. And I'm sure you'll get to hear more from me tonight.
Thank you very much to all of our three candidates. Now, I neglected to mention we have had apologies from Group F, the Libertarian group, and also from the independent DJ Nui. Now, DJ has actually got a fundraiser tonight, so very important for him to get some funds. He was telling me just 2 nights ago just how expensive it is when you're running as an independent all by yourself and how much work it is. And we have also had an apology for Team Robert. So if you're wondering why we're missing those guys, it's simply for whatever reason they were unable to make it. And we know that the Labor team hoped to make it, but technology appears to have got in the way. Before we move on to questions on notice, I'll just explain to you all what's going to happen is the candidates only actually get 1 minute for each question. And if you are asking a question, we'd appreciate it if you try and keep your question nice and succinct and to the point rather than a 5 or 10 minute background story so that we can get as many questions as possible. So what you're going to hear instead of a buzzer at 3 minutes, you'll hear one at 1 minute, and we'll give each candidate a little bit of latitude just to finish off answering that question before we move on to the next candidate. Our first question tonight is going to be a question without notice from Luke from the Camden Haven News. And there he is up the back. I'll just see if we can get a microphone to him so he can ask the guys his question. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, guys, and sorry for the unexpected question, but I am happy to take it on notice. Given the instability caused by early resignations during the last 2 terms of council, can each candidate confirm their commitment to serving a full term if elected and clarify whether they have any plans to run for state office in 2027?
Interesting question. So are you happy to answer that tonight, guys?
Yes, we always appreciate questions without notice. It's like being in council. Thank you very much. In that respect, no, I'm looking forward to sitting for a full term for the next 4 years to make sure we can get on top of all the work that we need to do. I didn't even know the next election for state was 2027, so thanks for the information in that respect. But no, I want to sit down with those 9 councillors for the next 4 years and just churn through the work and get stuff done. Thank you.
Thank you. What a great question. And no, I wouldn't be going anywhere. If I was going to go anywhere, I probably would have done it in this term, to be honest. And I've stuck it out. So I'm here to stay. I hadn't thought about the date of the state election. I wouldn't completely rule it out. It's definitely not on my mind. But knowing that you can, I think, hold, depending on the time frame, that you can potentially still serve on council. And if it's only, I think, 12 months or so, you could hold both. But I wouldn't want to completely rule it out. It's not a plan. It's not a plan. It's not a plan.
Controversial. absolutely commit to seeing out this term. Of course, excluding any extenuating circumstances. Certainly my choice to not run for mayor was a part of that decision. I want to make sure that I'm well, my family is well, and that I'm able to actively contribute to the councillor body the way that the people who vote for me expect me to. And so you won't see me running for state or federal, and you'll see me actively speaking up about whatever is happening at council so that you can be aware and giving input.
Thank you, Rachel. We might just hand the microphone along the back row, because I think that's a question for all candidates rather than just the leadership of each group. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pet hate of mine of politicians that step down before the end of their term. And it's on record, I think, that Councillor Roberts didn't complete one term previously. So it's, part of their group, Sharon Griffiths, retired from their group, and that really did affect how council operated for the rest of the last term. So absolutely, I'm committed to, if elected, to running the whole term.
Thank you. Now, I have no aims at all to stand for state or federal, and I think it's only the honourable thing to do to see through the full term of council, and I would do that.
Boy, I've run 3 times now, missed out by 1 each time. Each time that councillor left. If Sharon hadn't left a month earlier, I would be on council now. So I ain't going nowhere.
Well said, Kingsley. I just want to clarify one point before I answer, and that is that there are now regulations under the Local Government Act which says that if an elected councillor resigns within 18 months of the beginning of the term, and I think it's within 18 months before the end of the term, at the end of the term there's no need to replace a person if they resign. Someone resigns at the beginning, provided it's not the mayor, just it rolls down, so the next person who would have been elected. So just so you know. Regarding the mayor, it's different. You have to have an election if the mayor resigns. And I can only echo what Rachel said. If anybody who was on, 4 of us right here, who were on council this term, what we had to put up with, and we are still here and fighting, absolutely not. There would be no giving in to it. But what we are looking forward to is a much better council where we can all be positively contributing. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll simply echo what everyone else has said. I wouldn't have put my hand up or put my name to print if I wasn't prepared to put in the effort and stay the term.
Thank you. Yeah, I've no plans. I'm in for the hard work, so yeah, definitely ready to go.
We've got one more candidate just here. Now we'll give you this microphone.
The golden, is that on? Hello? Mike's on, that's it.
Yeah, I'm John Bailey and I'm here for our community. One thing that I do want to do is get rid of politics and personal agendas out of council. Council should be all about us, all about our community, and getting listening to our community and getting things done for our community. That's the way I see it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Luke, for your question. I'm sure that will satisfy your readers. Thank you. We'll move on with our next question. Now, I believe this question is just one that I'll need to ask.
Yes.
Okay, so the next question is the referendum question we have to answer at the election asks if we agree with reducing the number of councillors from 9 to 7. What is your position? And as soon as Rachel has the microphone, we might just start right there.
I was talking about doing it in order. Yeah,
well, Lauren, please, thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm not going to hog the mic all night. I'm going to let Stuart answer some questions.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Lauren. Where do I get started? We believe in diversity and representation leads to opportunities for better debate and decision-making for the whole community. If there are only 7 councillors, 1 mayor and 6 councillors, it seems quite likely that a group ticket of 6 candidates would think and vote the same way. We've got a history of that. Could take total control of the council with absolutely no diversity. The mover of the motion for reducing from 9 to 7 at the September 2023 council meeting at the cost of $70,000 for the referendum was Councillor Roberts. Wouldn't it be great if he was here this evening to field this question? Where are they? They're missing in action or at all, okay? It's an absolute nonsense. Nowhere else with a population of 80,000 voters do they have less than 9 councillors. Most have 11. So vote no strongly. Tell your friends to vote no, to keep diversity and democracy in our council. This would just increase block voting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm taking this one because, as you can see, I'm a little bit one-sided. Look, who does this benefit? Okay, certainly there are probably an OIC in council and some council staff who would love to not have to deal with as many picky councillors. But look, council staff don't hate us. They don't make decisions ad hoc because they're evil people. They make them because they're concentrating on council's point of view. That's where councillors are really, really important, because we give your point of view. So they put a proposal, we say, oh, that's great, but how about this, this and this? And they haven't considered that. So that's how council works. So reducing that representation on council is hitting that process in the face. The other people it benefits are the people that raised this. Now, as Stuart said, $70,000. Hands up those that asked for this. No, I didn't. It came out of nowhere. They pushed it through because they don't have to ask for our permission. They have the numbers. And that's what this leads to, as Stuart led to. 7 means that I can run a ticket of 6 or 7 or 8, well-funded, possibly by a political party, and I'm guaranteed to get in, and we lose control of our council. So that's a really big issue, okay? The other one I get from a lot of people is, oh, small government, that sounds great. You're not getting smaller government. The council stays the same size, you're getting less representation. And I'm from the North Shore, same as you guys. If you're in the regional areas, it's hard enough to get heard now, let alone when you've got less representation in an area that's growing exponentially. Let's look at our neighbours, Kempsey. They've got about 30,000. They've got 8 councillors. Next door, 100,000, pretty close to us, 11 councillors. The state average is 11. We're underrepresented now. So please, vote no for 7.
That's the only problem with speaking last. All the good points are already mentioned and taken. Fantastic. So the bottom line is we need you, we ask you to consider voting or crossing that no box. As has been mentioned, Coffs, Nambucca, Tamworth, Kempsey, they've all got 9 councillors, similar sizes. Mid-Coast, following their big merger several years ago, when you consider they go Gloucester to Foster to Hawk's Nest, they have 11. Understandable. Bello has 7 councillors. Bellingen has 7 councillors, serving 13,500 people. Our population will be 90,000 plus in 2028. 9 is the right number, perhaps a little understated, to serve the population at the moment in our LGA. So, again, no one asked you. It was just thrown out there, and you wonder what the intention is, obviously. What's the point of it all? So I would also suggest don't vote for the block voting tickets. So if there's a group that has 5 or 6 members on their ticket, those candidates, avoid them with the plague, like the plague, when you go to fill out your ballot paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fascinating, isn't it? We've got everybody on the same page amongst all the candidates in the room. And Nick's just mentioned block voting. The next question actually talks about block voting. Is Helen in the room to ask that? She's not. I'll ask it on Helen's behalf. With some councillors having voiced concerns about block voting by the current council, will those candidates in teams, if all elected, also be voting as a block? If not, on what issues do you see a conscience vote being allowed? And that's a question from Helen. And Nick, you're first up.
Thank you, Helen. Quick answer is no. Should our entire team of 4 just happen to get over the line, which would be quite difficult because, as you can imagine, a lot of people have different opinions on who they want to support. Therefore, you're going to get a good mix of candidates elected. So getting 4 over the line, not a majority when you've got 9 councillors. Regardless, I have told John and Ellen and also Luke, should they feel strongly about voting differently on an item, I'm certainly not going to stop them or force them or bully them into voting or following my lead. They're all grown-ups, they're individuals, they're independent thinkers. They'll assess the information they have and make up their own minds based on those details. So it's a firm no in terms of if all 4 of us get in, I would suspect that we would vote on different ways on different items. Thank you.
Thank you. The short answer is all. All decisions should be up to every single councillor to come to their own decision. They'll be using their own networks, their own expertise. We've chosen this team running together because we have similar values and principles and commitments that we're happy to make that are regionally relevant and are not single issues, because we don't think that's how an election should be run. You should know what we stand for on a principle basis. This is different to what we've seen this term. For instance, a former Team Penson councillor did have social media video made about them by the mayor following her voting differently, with that being the topic of the video. You certainly won't see that from me. I certainly wouldn't expect that from either the councillors here tonight. And I certainly don't think that that's what our community expects from a mayor or any councillor.
See, we can't agree who's going to take the microphone. Look, for those of you that don't know much about the Greens, we're a grassroots democracy party, okay? So every decision we make considers everyone in the room. So certainly we would allow a conscience vote, but I can't see myself disagreeing with anything that Lauren, we think fairly similarly, but yeah, a conscience vote would be allowed. And on the unlikely case that we got 2 or 3 of us on council, on the wonderful case that we did, yes, we certainly would allow a conscience vote. But again, I stress, grassroots democracy, if you get involved with the Greens, you get to have a say.
And I would just add that although I do defer to my lovely colleagues for information at times, every single vote I've made in council has been my own decision, and the same would be available to any Greens members on a ticket together. This is not federal government. This is not state government. This is local government. For goodness sake, we want to hear from you. We want your input, and we all make individual decisions, weighing up all of the information.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the next question, I believe. Harold is in the room. Is that correct? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. One candidate advocates the slashing of rates, he's not here tonight, and a demerger of Port Macquarie Hastings Council in order to cut costs. How would a demerger align with slashing costs, and does council have the capacity to slash costs? Thank you.
Okay, it looks like I'm up first for that one. Goodness, well, to start with, a demerger, again, would take another referendum. That would cost money. So you'd spend money before you supposedly save money, but I can't imagine setting up a whole new council, perhaps back at Warhope, would be, I don't see that as being, what's happened in the past is that if councils have come together, they've had to conglomerate, and if they go apart, they've got to then split all their resources again. So I can't imagine how that would get Warhope or Port Macquarie Hastings broadly anywhere. But also on that, the second part of the question is, does council have the power to slash rates? Look, we really don't, because the community sets the strategic plan. You tell us what you want, and you tell us the service levels that you want, and we have to be able to provide that. And we can't do that with less.
I'll be passing this question to Councillor Lisa Intamin, who has over 20 years experience, and there's something to be said for corporate wisdom, and with that.
What can be said for corporate wisdom? We got several questions in here. Thank you, Harold, for the questions. I'm going to jump to first, how would does council have the power to slash rates? Absolutely. Absolutely. They could charge no rates and provide no services. They go together. How would a demerger align with slashing costs? I don't think there is a direct connection because life is more complicated now. Life is continuing to get more complicated, which means what we need to do is exchange regionally, share infrastructure and expertise, but most importantly, within the organisation, how do you make the best decisions? We've talked before here about conscience votes and etc. In my ideal world, we would all bring our own interests and expertise to any decision. And the way to cut costs is to take advantage of that information and expertise that each person has and is able to, I can't see the light. It is red. It's about how people interact more than the structure. Thank you.
Think. 1, 2. 1, 2.
She's trying to trick you, Nick.
Lisa Intamin, please. Honestly, it is one of the stupidest things I've heard during this campaign, and there's been a few outrageous comments over the past couple of weeks as well. The candidate that proposes these options, these questions, is the one who should be answering. He should be here tonight and facing you. It's one thing to come out and say, we want to do this, we want to do that. Back it up and show us exactly how that's going to be done. They're not here, they don't provide the answer. Honestly, I don't know why, in my personal opinion, why they're wasting their time being involved in this campaign, because there's a lot that's being said from this particular group ticket of 5 that you take with a pinch of salt, honestly. So I would like to express my words more strongly, but I'll let it go. But this is ridiculous.
And I appreciate you not expressing your words more strongly, because you know what I would do if you did, don't you? I wouldn't be happy. We have another question. Question 4. Is Bruce in the room to ask this question? It does not appear so. All right, I'll ask it on Bruce's behalf. What is the current council's policy on maintenance of council halls? For instance, the Warhope Scout Hall is not fit for purpose and needs major repairs, but is still being leased out for community events. What will you implement to ensure council's assets are regularly inspected and properly maintained? And the first person to answer that would be Rachel Shepherd, please.
Thank you for the question, Bruce. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the policy is. What I can tell you is that we can have a policy, but we need the money to be able to act on it. And at the moment, what I do know is that we're well behind our building maintenance needs on a large number of the buildings. And one of the areas that was cut under the rate freeze that was put forward this year was building maintenance. So some of that was able to be mitigated with the reserves that are meant to be there for emergencies and whatnot. But into the future, that the backlog on building maintenance is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger unless we're resetting how we do these things. So council's already investing in efficiency reviews. We've already identified all of these efficiency actions that we need to be taking in order to save money for the future and be able to fund the services that our community needs. That includes things like tech uplift. Once we do that, all of a sudden, things are going to be a lot more efficient. We have more money, but it takes money to do those things. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. So in Wauchope itself, I know that we do have an arts hall, a CWA hall, a Rotary Youth Hall, and a senior citizen centre. That's just Wauchope alone. So you can imagine how many venues need regular maintenance that are owned and run by council. To be honest, when I saw the question earlier this afternoon, that was the first time I'd heard or found out any details about the Scout Hall needing major repairs. I would assume all of the council's venues would be maintained on a regular rotating basis. I'm happy to go look at the venue, that's not a problem. Also happy to ask the CEO for a response following the election, because as we're currently in caretaker mode, they will not answer anything that we ask them because of the fact they don't want to be seen favouring any candidates with information that might make me look good and the others not in that respect. So that's something we can chase up. Again, I was not familiar with this particular venue being in a state of disrepair, but that's something we can follow up. And as councillors, that's what we do for you.
Thank you for this question. Great question. And unfortunately, I can't tell you what the asset management plan is for the community halls at the moment. It's been something that we've been waiting for in this last term of council, and I've certainly been pushing for it and looking for, that kind of description of service levels for the community. It is coming. This huge amount of work has been done in this last term of council. So they are going to be next year, in the next 12 months, they will be there for the community to see. But I'm starting to hear this as we move around in these Meet the Candidates forums, and it's really quite shocking actually, because I see in most of the community plans, there's references to community halls. Some of them are council owned, some of them are not. But either way, they seem to be falling into disrepair. They seem to be needing attention, and on some instances, community grants have been applied for and they haven't succeeded. So it's really a problem. And I would say that when you have the past term of council that we did, where you saw the mayor, ad hoc spending, throwing $50,000 at a garden to make it nice and red, just because when, community halls didn't get the money they needed, something was seriously wrong. We don't want another term like that. And we want to be able to tell you what the service levels are and let you be able to read about it and know what's going to happen when, and that you can hold us to it.
Thank you very much, Lauren. And hang on to the microphone, because I think you'll be the first one to answer the next question. I just want to check, is Deanne in the room? Because the next question is from Deanne. We had this the other night. A lot of people are very shy when it comes to asking the questions in person, so I end up asking them for them. So Deanne's not here, obviously. I will ask the question, and Lauren, I'll get you to be the first to answer. There has been talk by candidates about support for more community services for the most vulnerable in our communities. Projects like community gardens alongside neighbourhood service centres, example Lake Carai as an example, can grow and provide food as well as teaching healthy habits. Will you support the establishment of such gardens, and if so, how?
Okay, again, great question. And when I look at the community plans, again, our community is pretty wonderful. Every plan is talking about including everybody, and it's talking about being considerate of those that are less fortunate and disadvantaged. And certainly in this last term, I think myself and another number of other councillors were patiently looking at how we might be able to help with the housing crisis, the homelessness crisis, and the growing troubles that we're having there with inequality. And we do have a report coming back to the next term of council on a council building that could be used to help support the homelessness interagencies. But this question is more to community gardens next to neighbourhood centres. I'm making inquiries all the time. I'm trying to understand more about neighbourhood centres and how they're funded and who owns them and what's their purpose. And so absolutely happy to look more at this. I'd rather see it come through a community plan though, and know that it's definitely something that the village or town is putting forward officially. But we need to get this back on track. These community CCATs, these council community action teams are not working, and we've not been able to participate. We've not been able to hear directly from you. Hey, how's the plan going? Is it being delivered? Where are you up to? Like, we just have not had access to you all the way we should.
Yeah, Laura mentioned a word I hate, CCAT. It makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. We already have community associations out there. We don't need council telling us how to run our business. My background, I'm a life member of the North Side Progress Association, so very much involved in this. Where I come from on this is We need to support communities. A classic example is we've got a place over there called the Coal Wharf. Now, council was going to resume that and turn it back into native forest. We said, hang on, there's a lot of vandalism here and all the rest of it. The community approached council, and with a combined effort, we managed to turn the Coal Wharf now into a place that there's hardly any vandalism. It's a great asset for the community. And we did it ourselves. We built the infrastructure with the support of council. Since they've got rid of all the community consultation process and all the rest of it, you're pushing the barrow uphill now. And we just got to get that back again. So, yeah, of course, everybody's going to say, we do need this. The gardens in Port are a classic example of how good it can be. I will add a caveat, though. This depends on community too. The community's got to be behind it to keep it going and running. It's a little bit like the halls. One of the big hassles council have with halls is we get a hall going, and then all of a sudden the community disappears and the hall's left there and it falls into dispute. So we've got to foster community. That's really what it comes down to. And that's not a flowery word. It's just supporting you guys that are out there doing it.
Just mentioned before Nick starts, look, if you guys need 15 seconds or so to finish off your thought, don't hesitate. I'm not going to run up and grab the mic off you too quickly, because I've noticed you've been so good tonight, and I'm hesitant to say take an extra few seconds if you need it. If you really needed to finish off a thought, by all means.
Thank you very much. We all do a little bit of prep, and of course, other things pop into our heads as we go along. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. My answer is fairly short and sweet. I understand we do have community gardens in Port Macquarie, in Wauchope. Is there not one with the community college here in Laurieton as well? There you go, which is fantastic. Kendall? Fantastic. There you go. Any more? I do believe that, and it's probably something that happens anyway, most primary schools would love the chance to take their kids on a fun educational experience to see how or where food comes from. It doesn't come from the fridge at Coles. It actually comes from the ground first up. I would support very much so a combined council/community group initiative about setting up gardens, more gardens right across the LGA. I guess initially council would need to fund and set it up, and then allow you guys to take it over and do what you need to do with a bit more support down the track as well. But yeah, they need to be maintained. They need to be constantly looked at to ensure their survival naturally. So yeah, more than happy to support this particular initiative.
You want to use this one?
Very slow microphone. I turn it on and it takes about 5 or 6 seconds to react. I'll persevere for now, thanks, Greg. Is Andrina in the room to ask the next question? She couldn't make it? Someone sung out? Fantastic, I'll ask this one. With good wheelchair beach access limited or non-existent, will you support the necessary and long overdue upgrades to make our beaches accessible to people in wheelchairs? There are other options than the sand cruiser wheelchairs, which need at least 1 or 2 carers to push the chair across the sand. And that question's from Andrina. And Nick, I think you're first on this question.
Thank you. I'm just going to take my 15 seconds. No, I'm good. So I've done a bit of a study on this as well, and I have been asked previously in the last 12 months about council providing beach access matting, which is a fantastic idea. Currently you find it at Fingal Bay, north of Newcastle, Taroon Bay on the Central Coast, South Cronulla. There are also several other locations in just about every state. It's not as common as you would think, but surely we can have at least one beach to start with in the Hastings region where we can roll out this beach access matting to allow those access to the water without requiring major assistance. Makes a lot of sense. If the new term of councillors agree to set aside a bit of funding in the next budget, or we look for a major sponsor, I don't know, Laurieton United, then we can make some progress. So again, happy to support.
I'm going to ask Linda to answer this. So Linda has 20 years experience in the corporate sector in Port, but 6 years ago moved into the disability sector to work as, and now the services and marketing manager at Willing and Able Foundation. And also board member for Port Macquarie Chambers, and I think very uniquely positioned to answer this question. That was my 15 seconds.
I think you took all my time. Look, Nick hit the nail on the head. The short answer is yes, of course we would support that. Like anything though, it's planning, it's time, and it costs a lot of money. Accessibility is something that's very community driven and it takes time. But as a council leading the way, absolutely. As Nick said, definitely starting with One Beach, because disability access is changing and improving every single week. What we have now to what we're going to have in 10 years is going to be amazing, because we're driving for it, we're advocating for it. And hopefully in the next 10 years, it will cost a lot less, because at the moment, when you put the word disability there, it seems to add dollars to the cost. It does, but that's something that as a community and certainly as a council, we would definitely support and continue to explore.
Yes, thanks, Andrina. With reviewing this question, I thought of the great facilities that we get through Senator Jordan Steele and the Greens. The Greens have got policies for disability that are really quite advanced, and I'll be approaching Senator Jordan Steele just to see exactly what we have to do to improve disability access. I understand that at Lighthouse Beach there is some matting going in. So yeah, I'll make a commitment to Andrina. I'll get back to you. I'll speak to Senator Jordan Steele, who's actually changed the disability access rules at Parliament now to get something done. It's important that we take care of our whole community. Thanks.
Testing up, we're back on the air. It's almost as slow as me, this microphone. Now, the next question is about wards. Is Frank in the room to ask that question? They can watch it on YouTube, I guess. Question is about wards. While setting up wards requires a referendum and a 4-year delay, creating area committees as established across Britain by the Blair government and in parts of Australia would provide easily established local community groups with advisory powers to council in regard to local issues and proposed developments. If elected, would you support establishing them? That's a big question, guys. And Nick, would you like to have a go at that, please?
Well, yeah, the short answer is in fact yes. It is something I've been speaking about the last few candidate sessions, or at least something similar to that anyway, that I have, if you've been watching the YouTube, studying the YouTube videos, de facto ward system, because we can't implement one unless we have a referendum, and then that's 4 years down the track. So in that respect, looking for support in the council chamber when we get into the new term to ensure that each councillor can be responsible for a certain, divided up into 9 pieces somehow. And they were all responsible for a certain area, and then bring back information to council, share the details about what that community wants. Very similar to what you have with the CCATs, but something I would certainly be more than happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Our team is absolutely committed to revitalising community input to council decision making. We are not going to commit to any particular thing. We want to hear from you, not by coming out and asking again, but first off, reviewing all the community plans that we already have, reviewing all of the possibilities for engagement, and allowing each community to establish its own preferred way to communicate with council. I'm an old-fashioned person in the sense that I believe that people are more important than anything. People have the ideas, they have the passion, they have the commitment and the vision as to what they want to do. And it's my passion to try to encourage the ideas to come from the community and to establish then from the grassroots up how we are going to engage with the community. Area committees may be a good idea, but I don't want to force them on anybody. We're not going to say yes or no, but we need to engage with the community. I want to, I'm going to take Rod up on this 15 seconds business. You might find that we're all saying the same kind of thing. I think that's fantastic. You've got people who are coming here, going to putting themselves their hand up for council. They've all got very similar views. They've got similar views to what you guys have got. We just want to make great communities. If I was to change two things in the world, number one, everybody would wear a name badge with their first name on it so that we can all know each other, because we know faces but not names. And secondly, we would go back to the notion of looking at each other in the eyes in the street. Yes? These simple things are how we rebuild community, and that would be our grounding. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks again, Lauren, for the opportunity to answer this one. It comes back again, reviewing the last term of council. It's really clearly obvious to me and to the comments I've got from the other councillors that the CCAT process is not working. And I understand it's not working because there was a council directive made that councillors couldn't meet without the community, without a director present. And it's expensive to send directors, so this limited the amount of community access. Also, the community committees, one of which I was on, the Sustainable Working Group, the Cultural Committee and other community liaison groups were disbanded in the first part of council. So I would say that the Greens have a commitment to reintroduce committees that talk to and get communication happening with you, the community. That's what council's about, is talking to community. So review the CCATs, get them working again, get the community groups, get liaison groups happening. We've got to work harder at it. We've got to listen to the community, get the have your say working. Who's had to go at have your say? Pretty onerous task, isn't it? Yeah, there should be a TAFE course in how to run it. That's got to be improved, okay? Yeah, that's my 2 bobs worth in the 15 seconds. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe we have a question about World Wildlife Fund, and I think Peter is actually here. Could you raise your hand, Peter? All right, no problems. In 2019, Council was invited to join an eco-destination certification program by World Wildlife Fund, free of charge, that focuses on sustainable travel. After joining in first stage education, Council withdrew. With increasing online searches by international tourists for ecotourism, should Council consider rejoining? And that's from Peter that we saw right at the back there. And if Lauren could answer first up, please.
Yes, and the very short answer would be yes. Council should consider rejoining, because I think that it's pretty clear that this has been an interest, a desire from the community to explore this tourism opportunity. And we're a beautiful, pristine place with no big dirty industry. We're perfect for it. My understanding is that, right, you know, on the cusp of this, it would appear that we perhaps wouldn't have had the support from national parks to certify our area, and that was, you know, for a range of reasons, but probably a relationship breakdown, which I think is getting better as time goes on. We've had recent revocations where we've therefore we're compensating national parks for encroachments that we've done. So there's been a little bit of history there that wasn't great, and I think it's all moving in a good direction now. So I would love to see this come back. I do think that it's going to benefit our area immensely if we can get on this train.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for the question. The short answer, of course, as has been most of the evening, yes. I'm all for tourism and the economic benefits it brings to the local region. I know that small businesses, they love tourists coming to town. I've been meeting with the Kew Kendall Community Network for the past year or so on a monthly basis, and there's a group at Kendall trying to get a mountain bike track up and running, which needs council and national park support and teamwork. For example, Northeast Tassie, currently Australia's mountain biking hotspot. They've got over 120 Ks of new purpose-built mountain bike single track, and that's on top of 200 kilometres of track they already have. The small town of Derby was dying a slow death until someone with a vision turned it into an adventure tourism mecca. So if you build it, they will come. There's no doubt about that. If you provide an opportunity to highlight your region in one way or another, particularly through tourism of all sorts, people will come to the area. So certainly in support of anything that will assist us financially, economically, as a local area in that respect. Thank you.
Okay. Just to report, during the last term of council, there was a strident effort to clamp down on and abandon any sustainability principles and practices. This is politically short-sighted in the sense that all of us want a sustainable environment. Businesses want certainty going forward. We all need good planning going forward. What Peter has suggested is a very important part of us recognising that. But I'd also like to say that I visited up in Comboid recently and they're suffering similarly. The loss of the tourism connection here locally has been one of the devastating ones. That was canned by the last council. Definitely, I personally, and I know our team, support sustainable development so that we can be prosperous in the long term, all of us. And that includes ecotourism, so definitely to rejoin that. But to go further than that and build on our sustainable credentials for ourselves, for our quality of life, but also for appealing to people who might want to come and visit us, as well as the amenity of the area in terms of our natural environment. There does not need to be a conflict between preserving the nature that we all love and having prosperous economy. These things need to be balanced. They take intelligence of people able to link things together. And I need to pass this to Rachel or she'll kick me.
I'm a soccer player, so I've got a good kick. Council's in a very difficult financial position. We need to be very considered in anything we invest in into the future, and this is a very good example of a project or an area that has an incredible return on investment. And that's what we need to be thinking about. The other thing I'd want to say is that in the future, we're not going to have ecotourism and tourism. It's just all going to be...
Wrap up as quick as you can, Rachel.
It's all just going to be tourism. And it's all going to be sustainable tourism. If you're not doing it that way, you're not going to be allowed to do it.
Now, I'm not sure whether Kerry is here. There's a question that I think these candidates are going to love. It's about structured community engagement. Kerry, are you here to ask that question? Obviously not. Nevertheless, I know that the candidates will love this one. Do the prospective councillors see any opportunity for a more structured community engagement policy to assist in the follow-up review of the outcomes and commitments of major projects that might be particularly important or have strong implications for the environment and/or public amenity? Question from Kerry, and thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. So I don't think it's an opportunity. I think it's an imperative. So in the last council term, one of the very first decisions we saw from the outgoing council under the direction of the Team Pinson voting bloc was to disband 9 committees made of dozens of community members, industry stakeholders and staff, and to do so without review. Subsequently, we've failed to adopt a community engagement strategy to direct the implementation of our community strategic plan over these last 3 years. It is an imperative that that we do so into the next term and no longer see this erosion of meaningful engagement with our community. In relation to the specifics of the environment and public amenity, those are the sorts of things that we're going to naturally see come from our community during any engagement, because that's what we've seen come from our community. It is a priority on maintaining the amenity and maintaining the beautiful environment that everyone comes here for and stays here for. And so as long as we do have appropriate structures, then that's what's going to come through. As Lisa alluded to previously, Team Shepherd supports a review of council's structures and systems for community engagement, including what has come before, so that we can make sure that if there were parts that were working, we do those again. And if we need to be doing it better, then we're evolving the processes to make sure to make sure that's the case. So that will involve further communication with all of you, but it involves in the first instance having a really clear sense of what worked in the past and what's available to us now.
Absolutely, and I'd repeat that. And I did bring the notice of motion that sought to review those committees, because waiting and waiting and waiting for it to happen, and then it seemed like it wasn't going to happen, and then the advice was, oh, we're so close to the end of the term, does it really matter? Heck yes, it matters. And so we did get a report, but unfortunately it was not quite what we were looking for. So we still have to go back to the drawing board. We need to review the structures, again, what was working, what wasn't, and make some improvements with you. With your feedback. So we need better engagement structures. We need to improve, have your say. And I think what we've heard from all councillors, I think I pick up on a remark made by Councillor Interman, by Lisa, a little while ago about us all agreeing. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the case, but what I think is the common thread here is that we all want to progress your plans. They're sensible plans, they're great plans, they do care about the environment, they do build community, they do build economic opportunities. So we just need to get back to having those structures and those engagements where we continue to work on the plan together. We continue to build it together. And as it evolves, as it changes, or as we need new feedback, it's right there. It's not a big, arduous process to go back and find out how we're tracking on this, because everyone involved and the subject matter experts that often live in this area and volunteer their time on different committees and things, that's gold. Like, we need that back.
Wow, I think everything's been said there from Rachel and also Lauren. If you can just imagine all those words mixed together and then coming out of my mouth, it would be the same answer. As you can imagine, we spoke about the committees that were dumped at the beginning of this particular term, and it's something we would like to see again in the new term. Let's review them all to see what can be saved, what can be retrieved, and what maybe we can actually let go. But where was the review in the first place? It was never undertaken, and yet we undertake policy reviews constantly and continually amongst other parts of council's work, but for some reason the committees were just shoved to the side, and those who voted for that just weren't interested in community consultation. So yeah, policies are under constant review, and it is the feedback that we get from you that drives change. If you're not talking to us about what you want, if we're not listening to you, then there's a massive breakdown there in terms of councillors and, of course, the people that we represent. It's quite odd that the group ticket of 6 that hasn't attended any of the Meet the Candidates events aren't here listening to you again, aren't responding to the questions you've been providing for the last 3 events. So you've got to think, what is their agenda? They're just going to do their own thing when they get elected again? So keep that in mind, that we are listening. We want to listen more. We want to consult, and we certainly want to have you drive the decisions that we make. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure Harold's not in the room, is he?
No, Harold's here.
Oh, my apologies, Harold.
Thanks. No, I'm still here. Sorry, guys.
No, we're pleased to see you, Harold.
One candidate, a different one, is this on? Yes, a different one to the one to whom I referred previously, speaks about getting the woke, and he's not here tonight either, speaks about getting the woke out of council. With the not particularly left-leaning Pinson bloc not able to slow it down, what does woke mean to you, and do you want to get woke out of council? Thank you.
And so this isn't my minute.
Oh, all right.
No, she's reading Mark's response.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I wasn't aware there was one from Mark, so Mark has a response. Okay.
Yeah, do you want to explain that, Rachel?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this was clearly, intended to. Well, Greg's
Yeah, it's okay.
The question.
It was addressed to the Libertarian.
Yes, and so I called the Libertarian, Mark, and I said, look, this is the question. people are coming, they probably want to hear what the answer is. So can you send us the answer? So he sent it to Greg, and I'm going to read it. I will change some of the words just to make sure it's clear that it's Mark's.
You're comfortable with doing that, Rachel? You don't want me to
If
read
you would
it?
like to read it, I'd
prefer that?
much prefer that.
Just, you've got to learn not to turn this microphone off like that.
Use this one.
Working now. I'm a patient man sometimes.
Yeah, we don't.
All right, I'll start from where it is Mark answering the question. Woke is often used as, he uses big words, a pejorative term. In my opinion, it's a slang term for critical theory, which includes critical race theory and critical gender theory, and is related to intersectionality. It is sometimes called cultural Marxism. These aren't my words, ladies and gentlemen. In this worldview, people are divided into oppressor and oppressed groups. It is seen as more righteous to be in the oppressed group, to the extent that even privileged people, right up to royalty, try to count themselves among the oppressed, while some completely innocent and charitable people are labelled as oppressors, due to immutable characteristics like skin pigmentation or sex. Libertarians are generally, my God, I don't think I even know this word, deontologists, meaning they are interested in the morality of the means. They are more focused on what you do than who you are. Are you acting within your rights and using the proper means to achieve your ends? Desirable ends do not justify immoral means. For example, nearly every dystopian novel is based around this theme. Libertarians are pro-choice when it comes to wokeness. People are free to adopt whatever worldview they want. Libertarians typically have a constrained view of what is possible when it comes to changing people's nature or behaviour, and we believe different institutions in society can be used for different purposes. Our policy when it comes to councils is to say no to woke agendas being pushed through council by using ratepayers' money. The council is the institution set up to do local level public works, and they should stick to those tasks and do them well. They are not the people we should be looking to drive social and cultural agendas or shape people's ideas. Families, churches, charities, clubs, or other voluntary associations of people can fill that role. And that's thanks Mark Hornshaw. So that's the words. Harold, yes.
I apologise for asking the question.
I do think, though, we owe it to the candidates to still answer that question if they wish to. And the first person listed to answer that was me.
Because this person didn't bother showing up, so why? Do we have to listen to it?
Well, I promise I'll keep it light and fluffy compared to the actual question. Harold, you brought the whole room down with that question and bringing that in here. I guess another word for woke is aware. So I can't see an issue of council and councillors being aware of what is happening in and around our local government area or acknowledging the way the world is moving. We don't have to like progress, most people don't, but nothing ever stays the same. I know that my childhood is vastly different to the childhood of my kids. I personally don't think council should be reacting to non-local issues when running the business of council. We just stick to our core responsibilities and the extras that we like to do for our community. I guess woke is a trendy word at the moment, or has been for a little while, used by people who don't like change. A convenient word to use to put people down who have a different opinion. Personally, I would like to see the word woke never mentioned again during council debates. Thank you.
Yeah, Les is not able to be here tonight. He's crook, but he gave a great response to this. And thanks, Harold, for a top question. You've cleared the floor. It's time to do away with the expression of woke, which means different things to different people. I don't think Mr. Hernshaw explained what the woke things that council did. But I would say the woke issues to which the Pinson's Robert team strongly criticised were invariably issues that were considered by the more progressive councillors amongst us. And there's ones that many in the community consider as critical to the quality of life in our local government area. These issues were resilience to the impacts of climate change, better protection of the natural environment, and a commitment to achieving 100% renewable electricity for the energy sector at least. If these are woke plans, bring them on, okay? So the only people that I've heard use the word woke, I think, were the Pinson Group, the Libertarians, and Donald Trump. Let's just get rid of the word. Thanks.
Can I just say, I think it actually is perhaps the Greens represent the polar opposite of that stuff that you read out. So if you're interested in equity and social inclusion, which your plans tell us you are, vote Green.
I am glad that I asked Mark to give a response because it does represent the views of some people in our community as well. I consider the word woke a slur, and obviously if there's that sense that you're being slurred against, you don't like it, right? And I discussed this with Mark earlier, that I think the word woke operates in the same way as anti-vaxxer does, and conspiracist or stupid or, you know, whatever. And as soon as we say one of those words, we're not actually talking about the specific issue anymore. We're trying to denigrate the other person as someone who shouldn't be taken any regard of on anything. And so I suppose my broader view on this is that those words that are intended simply to stop a discussion of something aren't useful for us. So then stepping into the bigger picture, you know, as we look to the next council, I think we're dealing with an issue that faces the whole world, is actually how do we have meaningful discussions between people who have really different values and different views. And that's something that communities did actually do. We don't do that well that much anymore. And so I suppose my challenge to all of us here as well would be to think about how do we do that a bit more? How do we engage genuinely with people with very different views? Because we are in challenging times, we're facing challenging times, and we are all going to be in this together.
Thanks, Harold.
You're going to love this next question, everybody. Guaranteed. Are there any questions from the floor? Because I have finished all of the questions with notice. So raise your hand. I think, Greg, I might even take the microphone round if you can't. Greg, will be going, look at this. Jump on the first person you can find, please. No, don't jump on them, but certainly give them the microphone.
Hi, everyone's talked about community liaison and listening and all of that sort of thing. Sorry.
It is working.
I just wanted to relay an instance of attempted communication by council recently, where they came and asked, I think they were asking about local infrastructure, in particular about bike paths and things like that. And they sent a really, really lovely young man to the local community hall, and I went along and asked my questions and made my suggestions, and he was a very sweet young man who was absolutely clueless, had never been on a bike in his life, and did not listen to a word that I said about what was needed by somebody who is a social cyclist. And so I love the idea of community liaison, but if you don't send the right person and they don't listen, then it doesn't work.
Anyone want to volunteer first up?
I can be brief in that respect. So I understand the situation there. I guess that's where councillors become your conduit in terms of getting information through to the staff about what you want, depending on what the issue or the project is in your local area. So if you're not confident in talking to a staff member at a pop-up, then please contact us directly, whether it be email, whether it be a phone call, whatever the case may be. Express your opinion, and that way we know what you want going forward and we can ask those questions.
Not knowing but assuming it probably was a pop-up. I would say that was only one aspect of the engagement that was happening. There were definitely other ways to have your feedback come into council, but I would say if you're dissatisfied with that experience and that effort you went to give your input, that making a complaint to council is probably the best way to improve that.
Just that's another layer that regular Joe has to get through.
I'd actually, you stole my thunder, it's a bit of an unusual thing to recommend you make a complaint. But actually, the complaints and compliments avenue is a way for you to give feedback to council between elections, and before it gets to the point where it's or at forums, before it gets to a point that actually there's a bunch of people who've been facing the same issue or are really dissatisfied with the same thing, and everyone's feeling resentful because nothing's changed, but actually it's not been raised yet. We've seen this a couple of times as well on various different issues. There was one out at Warhope and a couple of different things. So I'd really encourage you, if it doesn't feel like contacting a councillor is the right thing as well, it's not a bad thing to make a complaint. That's data for us, and it will be counted and means something as well.
It's very similar to a lot of the previous. You've got time at a time.
I would like to empathise with this lady here who's had that experience and say, yeah, fine, make a complaint, but we will commit to stopping that from happening. I participated in an engagement regarding the Ocean Drive corridor. Clueless was absolutely the word I would describe that person. How can we send somebody out from council to speak to the community if they don't actually know about the topic that they're talking about? So I'm sorry. Yes, by all means, if something happens, complain, but we're going to try and make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you. That very much question comes back to a lot of the discussion from the candidates and the answers around community consultation tonight as well. If they are voted in, they've all said they're going to fix that, which will put you in a better position. Another question from the floor. There's quite a few up here. Greg, you might want to stay up that end, maybe.
Hi, Nigel Raymond. Firstly, I'd like to say to Queen Lisa, you've missed one thing. People should also say hello to each other. The other thing is the rumours are that the council's sitting on $400 million. Is this true?
Thank you.
It's a very succinct question, Brent. So there's certainly rumours that council's sitting on a treasure chest that we could be using to allow rates to be reduced or doing this, that or the other. There are reserves that are 100% externally restricted or fully allocated. And I'm saying that before I tell you the figure, because it's $418 million as of August. Now, the vast majority of that is in the sewer and water funds that are not allowed to be spent on nothing else other than the infrastructure that they've been put in for. The wastewater treatment plant that's to be directed towards and paid for with a lot of extra borrowing as well is going to be delivered by 2028 is the schedule. And the Kowara water filtration plant that the water funds will be spent on will be, I think it's 2027 is when that's completed. So those are the two big projects. They've been in the works for 6, 7, 8 years even. And so the funds are being collected for that purpose. So that's a big portion of the funds that are externally restricted, can't be spent on anything else. The rest of the funds are adding up to 99.3% of that 418 million are things like grants that can't be spent on anything else, are already directed to specific projects, bonds for contractors. So we're talking about 99.3% of those are either externally legally restricted or fully allocated to things that need to be done. They're also going to be fully exhausted by end of 2027, as I understand it. These are planned to be spent, they're going to be spent, that's what they're there for. And so all of these, misleading statements that have been put out, including by councillors, are completely wrong and show either misunderstanding or intent to mislead.
Any extra comments from you guys? Just whatever order you like, I think, because there's no. No, that's just closing remarks, mate.
Well, I think Rachel actually took my time and answered it perfectly, so I have nothing further to add.
Again, not much further to add. That was very accurate from councillors who have been following and listening and reading reports. But there was also a money reserves explainer. It's a little old now. It was in 2022. I reckon we should have that updated and put out again for the community. But if you wanted to have a look at that, that's another explainer of what those funds are and where.
I just can't help myself from grabbing the microphone. The justification for the rate freeze that we had $400 million to spend, and it was kind of brought together, I think is totally fallacious. And the fact that the rate freeze was put forward with the casting vote and against the let's have your say response and against the advice of the local government association is just an indictment on some of the things that have happened in the previous council. So we really need to respond and respect that communication, the let's have your say, and get truth in what the councillors are telling the community. So the $400 million was not there to give us a rate freeze. We're going to be $8 million behind, I understand, in next year's budget. So I'll let you make your own decisions on that point.
Thank you, Stuart. Good point. I guess the bottom line is, in my opinion, you have been lied to and deceived to. Sure, it always looks good. Rate freeze, great. We don't have to spend any more money on rates. But the whole purpose was to just get their plan over the line to make sure they got as many votes as possible in 2021. And unfortunately, the majority of the population fall for it, who have taken that up without actually considering the consequences down the track. So I do apologise if that was something that you voted for in that respect. But surely small increments each year are better than getting a whopping 10%, 15% increase next financial year.
Okay. Now, I think everybody's had an opportunity to answer that question.
Actually, Nico had two. That was the second bite of the cherry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was watching and thinking, well, he only took about 8 seconds for the first one, so I let him win. And the gentleman right up the back in the corner will come to you next, okay? In the green shirt. So we'll do this one and then we'll come to you next. No, just wait. We'll come to you after this gentleman here.
Right, good evening. Now, I've just built a house in Dunbogan. Now, we couldn't get bins or an occupational certificate until we had a possum box and a kookaburra box installed. And we have a housing crisis and we had to wait weeks and weeks and weeks before we could even live in the house with bins. So what kind of red tape and ridiculous rules can you think about scrapping so people can move into their houses sooner during a housing crisis?
Great question. Who wants to go first? Looks like Lauren.
I'm gonna throw myself in there because that sounds kind of crazy, but I'm not doubting what you're saying, but I'd have to look into that. I mean, I'm not saying that that's something that councillors would have control over, state planning when certificates get issued, but that needs some investigation. So I'm happy to look into that.
And I can say from experience that Lauren is probably the best person to look into those things because she's very good at inquiring into the application of the state legislation in particular instances, but also and my team, of course, yes. I should acknowledge Lisa. She's extremely determined and nonsense in answering those sorts of questions because it is a housing crisis and it's a term gets flipped around, but we're talking about as people having a home. And so maybe you can afford to live somewhere else, maybe you can't, but it flows on, right? And it's the flow on is getting to the point where it's people on families with 2 incomes who can't afford to live within an hour of port, So again, it's an instance that need to look into in a lot more detail, but obviously not happy with that sort of a situation.
Not much more to add, but I do feel sorry for the situation council puts you in that respect. Can I ask, so that you didn't have any indication as to those requirements before signing off?
Well, there were two things, right? I've had to borrow an extra $30,000 because one council inspector passed the project, and then council changed their mind. So tomorrow I have to go to the Commonwealth Bank and borrow another $30,000 and pay another $12,000 a year on my mortgage with the offset account's gone, because of that. Because the council, I mean, quite frankly, they got it wrong. You approve a house we've put forward, and then they change their mind later and have to be rectified. And I've got to borrow more money and pay the tradies. It's caused a lot of stress. And then we couldn't get bins for weeks and weeks because of a ridiculous thing like a possum box and a kookaburra box. We literally were without a bin. We had to beg neighbours if we could use their bins. And we were going without bin for something like 6 weeks.
Okay, I think we've probably got enough of that.
You're right. I did ask the question, so I appreciate the background there as well. So I was just trying to get clear in my mind whether or not they allowed, well, obviously they allowed you and then they changed their minds. We don't have the specifics as to why or how, but certainly obviously we can look into once we get re-elected, and to cut red tape is ideal, as you said, in this situation where we have a lot of people struggling to find a home or build a home with prices going up every week, every month. It gets harder and harder for the regular person to try and get in. So yeah, absolutely. Let's look into it, and thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Now, gentlemen up the back, do you think you'll be loud enough?
Council, as managers of Crown Land, two-part question: are you aware, and what can you do about it? For years now, I've organised different events and trying to organise permits across different Crown Land managers is an absolute bloody nightmare. I've been 5 months into this event. When you get national parks to say, I'm not going to issue a permit until forestry gives you one, and then vice versa, and council said it's the same. I've managed to negotiate, and I've got an acknowledgement that I have got an application with council so I can give it to the other land managers. When you get in, what can you do to streamline the land managers so that you've got one application, you've got 4 different applications, 4 different questions, they all want their $2 worth. This event is for the tourism to get heads on pillows in hotels, bums on seats and dinings, and fuel for them to get home.
So the question is...
The question is, are you aware of all this Crown Land management stuff that's been happening in council over the time in regard to that review you've just done? And what can you do to streamline different organisations that put in for events so that we can get people into town?
Thank you. I think that's quite clear.
Yes, so look, I understand that this has been the subject of a number of conversations with staff, and you and I have had a number of conversations around this as well, and so it is quite complex. However, in many regards, it comes down to 2 things. It's the various interwoven legislation, and it's relationships. So relationships between council and the staff, relationships between council and the other organisations, but also relationships within council itself, right? So certainly when we talk about, when we collectively, Team Shepherd, talk about teamwork, what we're talking about is all of these sorts of things. Having a council staff that are able to be integrated across silos or properly within a section as well, whether it's community development, whether it's infrastructure, whatever. And so, expect that to be a part of the path moving forward as well. But in terms of the specific situation that you're speaking to, it is quite complex, has a lot of specifics that I think we need to deal with outside of this forum also.
Just to clarify, it's not only yourself, it's other event organisers from outside the area. Don't bring events to this area because it's too difficult for them to put events on.
Can I just clarify, is the biggest part of the difficulty the fact that it's going what your event would be crossing different land managers? Is that the main crux of it? There's not that?
Yeah, one section, the 9-kilometre run through Creek. I've got Crown Land, Council, State Forest, National Parks. 4 antennas in 9 kilometres, and I've got to apply for a permit for each one, and they don't talk to each other, and they won't give a permit until the other one gives a permit. What is the event?
This is tricky.
It's kayak, mountain biking and running, so we utilise the infrastructure we've already got, get people out into the forest, get them into the area to spend some money.
I would say, I think councillors are very keen and worked towards council not being silos, and that is, you know, in our realm. This is a bit trickier, but obviously, you know, it could be improved. Have you, again, put through this kind of feedback to council? Have you put that all together? Just do you realise how difficult this is because of this, and this?
There's so many different areas in council, and one council I was talking about from section of council, and I was making great inroads, and 6 weeks later they said that's not our department, it's another department. I've had cancelled meetings, postponed meetings, that's not us. Oh no, we don't own Fox Creek Road. Oh, hang on, we do manage Fox Creek Road. That's 5 months. So yeah.
Okay, we need to talk.
We'll
yeah.
talk.
Thank you, Nashi. Of course, we've had a bit of correspondence on this over the last couple of years as well. What you need here is a table full of directors and the CEO to have a chat to, because they would assume be able to give you more direct answers, more definite answers in relation to all your questions, all the struggles you've had. So I will apologise that I don't have an answer for you tonight in that respect, but I guess keep up the fight, keep giving us details as to how you're getting through this particular issue, and then we can again, we need to look at it and ask the questions once we get back in to see if we can help you or see exactly what the problem is, why there's a breakdown in that communication amongst the different departments. Thanks, Nashi.
I'm just wondering, does that still come under the community consultation that you've all been talking about, or is that different?
This is community consultation.
Okay, we have a lady up here with a question.
Just a quick one on that.
30 seconds. We'll give you 30 seconds.
I know exactly where it came from. One of the things we need to do is re-establish those connections that, Lauren, council has become toxic. And the relationship between national parks, between lands and that, especially lands. Now, lands only have 4 people from Foster to Taree to deal with, and they're changing every day because it's toxic in there too. That's the reality. We need to have definite boundaries defined that are clear, and a classic is on the North Shore. I'm fighting this all the time. We've got campers up there ripping the dunes apart and all the rest of it. Go to council, oh, it's lands. Go to lands, it's council. And you're getting the same bounce back that I'm getting every friggin' 5 minutes. And parkies are on the side, just as it's just a basket case, and it seems to be just in this area. So we need to get those. We need everybody in the room talking together and getting clear definitions on where the boundaries are, so this sort of thing doesn't happen anymore.
All right, thank you. That lady been wanting to ask a question for about 15, 20 minutes, so
I'm sorry, sorry if this offends anyone living there, but I'd like to know why in this absolutely beautiful and pristine area we have developments like the ones at Lake Cat-Eye. I remember what Lake Cat-Eye was like, and when I drive through there, quite often I am nearly in tears just looking at what has happened. Why? Why do we have to have that?
Yes, so I grew up out at Papenborough, and my now husband, but then boyfriend, lived in Bonny Hills. So one of the quite visceral experiences coming back in 2018 to start our family was seeing the development that's happened. And my short answer to the question of why is because it's allowed. That the state legislation has permitted it. We haven't had land use plans or master plans or anything in place that would guide it differently. And that is the big task before council. So we talk about a lot of things that somewhat defined as a result of how this last term has gone. One of the things that has happened in the last term is the delay of a whole range of strategies that would help move our community forward in a positive and well-planned way into the future. One of the big tasks that still remains, and we need a council who has no interests, who is going to be balanced and considered and interested in sustainable development, if we're going to progress this land use planning into the future, so things like what we're seeing don't keep on happening. But that's going to require commitment. It's going to require a councillor body that is committed to delivering on that community interest of sustainable development. That's livable, it's environmentally friendly, and it's conducive to the infrastructure servicing that everyone wants also.
Thanks,
Yes, I'd say that's a large part of the reason why I'm here, why I'm standing, why I want to help shape our community the way that the community is describing. We want to have sustainable development. We want to keep our koalas but have more homes. We want to do it both, and we want to do it well. There's a lot of challenges of why that might happen. Some of it might be historical approvals. Some of it might be that we didn't have a comprehensive koala plan of management here in this LGA, which was a real shame. Almost 10 years ago we could have had. Didn't happen. Then we had a biodiversity strategy, which didn't have teeth, but certainly described some of the high environmental values. I've been pushing in the term we've just finished to try and have that described to the community. Where are the high environmental values? Where do we want our corridors? But there is a big challenge when that's privately owned. How does that become, what's the balance there? We didn't have a koala plan of management. If we did, it would have probably indicated that needed to be rezoned, some of that, for a corridor. So moving forward, yes, the land use strategy is going to be so important to see that we really do get that balance right, and we don't go certain places, and then we can enjoy the areas that are suitable for development.
I'll be brief. There's always concerns about balancing the needs of the community in terms of progress and the housing that we need, and then, of course, ensuring that we're not destroying our natural amenities, which is why we live in the area, why we came here in the first place. I'm often concerned about the fact that areas are rezoned, and what used to be a flood-prone area that you don't build in, all of a sudden you can. What is a bushfire risk area, take the trees away, we'll put some houses in there, or rezone it. What is a koala habitat, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter, we need some more homes. We need to be thinking more carefully. It's a jigsaw puzzle. It's very hard, I can imagine, for staff as well to contemplate and consider where's the next move, where do we go, how far do we expand. Obviously, Beechwood is now an area that's really taking off as well in that respect. It's a tough gig, and again, a lot of those decisions were made prior to us coming into council 2.5, almost 3 years ago. Not saying that we're going to shift the blame to others, but it's something that we need to look at moving forward. We need the homes, we need the jobs, but we also don't want to destroy our local area as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further? Oh, there's a lady up here. If you wouldn't mind, Greg, thank you.
Sorry, who is that?
Just over here. Probably have time for one or two more questions at the most, I'd say.
Sorry, not sure if council can really answer this, but it's a concern I have with relating back to that lady's question, with all the development that's happening in our area, all the thousands of people moving into the area that need to flush their toilets every day, have a shower, etc. Is there any long-term planning in place for our water supply? I can still think back to the time when we had water restrictions with a lot less people living here, and what's going to happen in the next time of drought. But it's going to have to be a long-term plan with something for a lot more water availability.
Thank you very much for the question.
No, great question. So when I moved here 21 years ago, you're right, we were under quite severe water restrictions at that time. Thankfully, things improved, perhaps too much so that we now have regular flood occurrences. Regardless, I think Rachel mentioned at a previous meet the candidates that, was it in 2015, council was considered almost a nation leader or world leader in terms of water security for this region, in terms of our planning. What's happened to that, I'm not quite sure, but you're right. You bring more people in, we need to make sure our water and our sewage systems are working at an optimum level, and naturally that's where a lot of that funding is going from the reserves at this point in time. So again, it's another consideration, and we're trying to, we keep talking about we're not keeping up with current demand, let alone what's going to happen in the future as well. So there's a lot of, no doubt, highly intelligent people who can sit down and work this out rather than just go hell for leather and develop the region too quickly that we can't actually keep up with our infrastructure. So a great question. Again, something, it's going to be a big 4 years, guys, when we get in terms of all the things we need to fix or sort out, but thank you.
I would just go back to the project mentioned earlier. The big thing that the reserves are being held for is the Kawara water filtration plant. That's being delivered. That is really forward thinking. 50 years supply? How much more?
So I think what Nick might have been referring to before is that our LGA started a long time ago, back in the 1980s, taking climate change into account when it did water planning. So in a lot of ways, we've been better off than some others. One of my key concerns leading into the next term, water security wise, is if we have a council that's significantly climate denialists, which is what we've had this time. They're not here tonight, but people who don't understand climate change is real, which is so significant for our water security. However, provided we have a reasonable, balanced council, we're going to be in a very good position water security wise. So our integrated water security, water management strategy looks at how water moves through our, is managed through our catchment all the way out from when it rains up in the hills to when it gets all the way out, whether it's to the ocean. It's talking about the catchment management, it's talking about stormwater, it's talking about drinking water, it's talking about sewer, all of those things. And it's data-based. It takes into account the most recent and worst droughts that we've had. And I think if you read that, and I'm happy to send you the link if you get in contact, you'll probably be much reassured. I am, so long as we continue to make decisions on the basis of sound scientific forecasts and advice.
Can I just say, despite that, in this last term of council, those engaged councillors that participated in every workshop, in every briefing, who gave their feedback, gave their input, made sure that things like that integrated water cycle management strategy considered the whole water cycle, considered the catchments. Some other people didn't want us to. They just wanted us to consider, well, what do we put in it to clean it at this end? Not, where does it come from? What's the health of it? How do we make sure we can still attract it? So I think, just kudos to some of the councillors that I'm thinking have really participated and really got good strategies going and good plans going for us despite a difficult council.
Okay, lots of passion there. Thank you. Now, any more questions from the floor? Oh, yes, over here, Greg. Thank you.
I've just got a quick question.
In the past, it's been kind of considered that the councils looked after people in a port. So we've got no one that actually lives in Camden Haven. Are we going to be remembered? I mean, we've only in the last couple of years had Ocean Drive at North Haven and Laurieton upgraded. Before that, it was really crap. So, we felt like in the Camden Haven we were ignored. Well, that's what I thought.
Thank you very much. Anyone want to volunteer?
Yeah, look, I'll speak on our behalf, our team. Rachel's at Bonnie's, I'm up in the North Shore, Lisa's out at Wallhope, and of course we've got Port represented there. Yeah, look, we're much smaller voice than you guys, so I really know how hard it is to get representation. And that's super important because I know there is definitely a feeling in council that a greater need needs to be taken care of. So when you're there and you're arguing for something, it's, well, there's 40,000 people in Port and there's only 10,000 of you out there. I can assure you that's not our attitude, okay? A council is there to look after everybody in the LGA and, yeah, you need to get your fair share of the egg. I mean, it's a balancing act for sure. But believe me, certainly as far as our team is concerned, we're well aware of that and the difficulties involved.
Yes, we also have Jane from Lawn on our ticket, but I have been out to the community in my term. I do not believe that a councillor represents just the area they live in. I hope Kingsley would remember me meeting North Shore residents and taking an interest and asking what sorts of things they wanted me to put forward. same down here. I've come and met with community from both sides of a disagreement, and I would continue to do that wherever I need to go in the LGA. But we do need to make this structured engagement better so that we have that channel always there. On top of that, councillors can go out and do the extra.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Couldn't agree more. The Camden Haven isn't forgotten, neither is Wauchope and Hinterland areas. Money and projects are dispersed across the area, and there is information at council in terms of where that money goes. So don't ever think that you're forgotten in that respect. If you want to have a look at our group ticket, you do have John that lives in the area, and you also have Luke that works full-time in the area as well. So there's an option for you right there in that respect. And I've made a commitment to the Kew Kendall Community Network, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of trying to get to them as often as possible and taking their feedback to council staff to get responses to some of their questions as well. We can't all be everywhere all the time, as you can imagine. Some of us do work full-time as well, and so I've had to knock back a few opportunities to come and see people during the day, whatever the case may be, let alone council meetings being held during the daytime as well. But I think you'll find that the majority of councillors, particularly the ones that are here tonight, are very, they think a lot about the entire LGA, whereas maybe that group of 6 who have failed to attend meetings have the worst record in terms of attending briefings. What do they really care about other than turning up and getting their paycheck?
Okay, I think that's everyone there. Are there any more questions from the lady over here, please?
If the new council gets in, are you still going to have the residents group meetings at like Laurieton, Wauchope and so forth? Are you still going to have the meetings out? Please, council meeting.
So I think that's something that we need to discuss with the community, to be honest. So having council meetings out in the community makes it easier for you to come along and attend the meeting itself, which is a bit different. You get a feel of what's happening in the room. You know, there's a bit of scoffing happening in the gallery. Robin's usually leading it. But it's also quite expensive. You know, it can cost upward of $10,000 a meeting to host it in the community. And so other options have definitely been fielded in this term. For instance, doing public forum out in the community so that you can come and speak to us about the issues that are on the agenda and give us your views in your community. And then we take it back to council and we have time to discuss that before we get to the council meeting. We have time to ask the directors plenty of questions and scrutinise it. So I'm not committed to a particular answer on that because I think we need to look at the options and get informed community input. The informed part's important. Just quickly go to the rate freeze. You say to people, do you want a rate freeze? Like, bloody hell, yeah. But then you tell people what the cost of that is to infrastructure delivery, to service delivery and to the long-term financial position of council. All of a sudden, we get a different response from our community. So I'd like to have some informed engagement around that.
And thanks for the question, Robin. Likewise, I would like to hear from the community moving forward what they would like about council meetings full stop. Do you want them in the evening? Is that more accessible to you? Will you want to show up to that? In this term, the times changed around and, 3 o'clock and then 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And so I think, we're not seeing a lot of bums on seats. So that makes me think we need to ask more questions.
Fair enough. Thank you. Robin, I fear that you're setting me up to make me look bad because I put a notice of motion forward about making sure all the meetings were held at the chamber. Due to the costs involved, not so much because we don't want to hear from you, certainly get the public forums out there. It was defeated, so we'd be happy with that motion. But for the fact that it was, in terms of working environment, we didn't have issues with microphones, we didn't have issues with live audio, live video as well. It was all contained, it was controlled, and we could just get on with our job, so to speak. But the intention was never to upset Wauchope / Camden Haven residents by not going out there and attending. So in that respect, so yes, I did put that forward. It was defeated, but it would be something I guess we would consider with the new councillors coming forward as well. It made me look bad, Robin.
We can take one more question if there is one. Harold over the back.
You remembered me. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in relation to the question that the lady before, sorry, I don't know your name, asked in terms of local representation. Could I just ask every one of you who gets voted in, and I hope it's all of you guys because you came here, can you just make sure that we know what your contact phone number and email and address is, please? Thank you. That's all.
I think the answer was it's on council's website, is that correct?
And it's on the Electoral Commission website.
I think Harold might be alluding to the electoral website, where some teams, namely Team Roberts, don't have any contact details at all.
And we've even had councillors who have taken their phone number off the website. So that's a really good measure of whether these people are actually want to be contacted or not. We had the mayor take her phone number off the website.
Okay, well, perhaps we should ask all of you if you'll commit to leaving your phone number on the website.
Yes, so our phone number is on the website. We've got our email on there as well. I don't think, for some reason, I don't think our website is on there, but we've gone to a great deal of effort to outline our policies, why we think you should vote for us, and some information about how council works. A Council 101, a document explaining some of the voting dynamics over the last year, so you can just read what it is, and it's all verifiable facts as well. So yes, short answer, long answer, look at our website too.
Okay. Try and keep your answers nice and short because I do have one more question I'm going to allow.
I'm contactable. You can catch me on my personal stuff by the AEC or by the council stuff until the 13th when they take it back.
Yes, also freely available, have been since day one, so you can contact me anytime. Many people do. I may not pick up the phone straight away. You may need to leave a message. But otherwise, yeah, that's the whole point again of being a councillor. You're here to represent.
So is there anyone in any of your teams, speak now or forever hold your peace, are you going to take your number off the website? No? Always. Okay.
Just with regard to the telephone number, do you also publish where the locality is that you live in? So if I'm living in Lake Cat-Eye and I've got an issue or a concern regarding Cat-Eye or whatever, can I get in touch with you if you live there?
It shouldn't matter who you contact.
You'd know the area better than
fair
the
enough.
other people.
Does the mayor live in Lake Cat-Eye? Bonnie Hills? She would be your local representative if you want to do that. If you want to chat to her, she is still working until a new mayor is elected, but the rest of us are on hold, so to speak.
Just to clarify your question, you're saying is, on the website, does it say which area the councillor lives in?
Well, it used to be a ward or a riding, but...
Okay,
yeah.
So does it say the area?
No, because we don't have any ward systems. Councillors put up their returns of interest, but they can redact their private residence. So that's not saying this has to be public knowledge.
We do also have the opportunity, I don't think many of us have put much on it, but a brief profile on the website that might include where we live as well. But I just want to caveat the answer to that with, for a great deal of issues, your best bet is to go through the main council website in the first instance. So the email or the council number, but asking for a CRM, asking for a reference number, and making a very specific request that clearly requires a response. So if you go directly through a councillor, there's a process where you go to a liaison, they go to a director, then they'll go to the staff member, and then before it can come back to you, it goes back to the director, back to the liaison, back to us, and then back to you. Whereas if you go through the regular pathway, it'll be quicker in the first instance. If you're not sure, still get in contact. We'll always help you, navigate the pathway, but we're not a shortcut because often there's quite a long line of requests that are in place, and so we really try and discourage councillors being used as a way to kind of jump the line, so to speak.
All right. We've got a few things now that we need to finish off to wrap up our meeting. Just very quickly, is there anything very briefly you needed to add to that answer, any of you? Lisa's got her hand up.
Did it answer your question?
I can give you 30 seconds, Lisa.
Thank you. Under the New South Wales Local Government Act, we represent our whole area, each of us. There's been a system put into place during the time that Rachel just described that's been put into place. I'm a bit of a rebel. I would like to suggest that thanks, Robin, if you've got an issue, contact a councillor, all councillors. You can contact all of us at once. And I would like to suggest if you've got something that you want to follow up on, copy in a councillor. Yes, go down the official council path, but copy in a councillor or all of us so we know what's going on. Otherwise, we do get that great runaround that they give us.
Okay, we need to start the wrap up. Thank you very much, Lisa. Now, before we do the wrap up from each of our three candidates, we just got an announcement from Greg from Hastings Residents Association, but before he announces it, I'd just like you to all put your hands together because the Hastings Residents Association, this is the 4th event they've run. All volunteer, so please put your hands together for all.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Next Monday, we have a mayoral debate in Port Macquarie in the Port City Bowls Club, starting at 7 p.m. These two mayoral candidates will be there, Nick and Lauren. We hope the third mayoral candidate, Mark Hornshaw, will be there. We doubt Adam, what's his last name? Roberts. I haven't seen him, so I forget his name. We hope he will be there. We have proposed to those who have so much trouble getting to these events that if they can't manage to get themselves there in person, we are going to send them the list of questions 2 days before, give them 2 days to write out their answers, and somebody else can read out the answers for them at the debate if they can't manage to get one member of their 6-member team there. And the questions will be put by local journalists. We have a commitment by several of the local journalists from the local newspapers, also from NBN News, to prepare questions for them so they'll be targeted at them as mayoral candidates. And our mayoral candidates will be there from 7 o'clock till 8:30 next Monday at the Port City Bowling Club.
Okay, it's now time to let each of the candidates have 2 minutes to do their, if you like, final elevator pitch to you all. And I'm checking the list, and the first person is Rachel Shepherd. 2 minutes, and we'll buzz you with 2 minutes, Rachel, just like all the others.
Now, having a rough time can tend to bring people of very different views together. And over this last term, I think there has been a perception that myself, councillors Edwards, Lipovac and Intamin share very, very different views, very similar views. And in some cases, that's the case, but actually in many cases not. So having run some analysis of voting over the last few years, there's more than 100 occasions when these 4 non-aligned councillors who came from 4 different tickets in 2021, more than 100 occasions we've voted differently from each other. Now, we've had some pretty robust discussions and debates about various issues, and we've voted differently on some quite significant and controversial issues. However, we've been able to maintain a level of decorum and respect for each other, and I believe I've been able to change some minds on a couple of issues, and my mind has been changed on a couple of issues also. Throughout this term, I have worked incredibly hard to allow this council to make better decisions, to facilitate the council to make better decisions, to put forward amendments to try and minimise harm in some cases, put forward moved amendments that I was not happy with whatsoever, but I knew that this was better than what was being pushed through otherwise. unfortunately, the role in council over the last term, I believe, has been to shine a light on what has been happening. In the face of being shut out of decision making, it's been a need to simply shine a light on what those decisions were and how they're being made. I've been absolutely privileged to do that often alongside Lisa Interman, and I know that should any of that be necessary into the future, it'd be well supported by Kingsley and Linda also. I also expect that as anyone else who's elected would expect from me, to be holding them accountable and how they conduct themselves into the future as mayor or otherwise, that any one of my team that's elected with me will hold me accountable. And I expect each of you to do the same for us and all of the other councillors.
Okay, and I'm just going to make it quick, if I can fit it in. Here's a little bit of evidence of disagreeing, I think, with one of these councillors that have just spoken earlier, only to say that, copy in all councillors as soon as you're communicating with council about something which might be resolved by that communication, please don't. It is overwhelming the number of things that councillors get, and this is not our full-time job. So if you're having an issue, if it's not resolved down the track, okay, that's when you're copying councillors. But I disagree with something that was said earlier, so I thought I'd just give you an example of a time where councillors disagree. So I'm asking for your vote for mayor because I have been committed as a councillor, very passionate to work for you. Some of the work that I've done on council, which has been led by your plans, I've always looked at the community strategic plan and your town and village plans when I think about what sorts of things I might try to bring to the agenda of council. So I've helped to ensure the priority of delivering 2 lanes each way for the Lake Road corridor, advocated for the establishment of park to ride hubs and more shared paths, instigated the identification of suitable sites for renewable energy projects, and we have one now that's a grant that's been applied for the Dunbogan sewer treatment plant. And I've highlighted that grant funding opportunity. Secured investigation for wildlife land bridge over the Pacific Highway, and that's going to be investigated by the state government in conjunction with the Houston Mitchell Drive overpass design. And instigated delivery of education campaigns on land clearing and wildlife health. Instigated a review of the standard of returns of interest of designated persons, councillors, the stuff we were talking about earlier, at higher standards, so you can see the transparency in what councillors' interests are. Secured investigation of a vacant building, council building for homelessness services. Most towns and plans talk about looking after everybody. Instigated a review of the community engagement systems and structures and those AXT committees we were talking about. These are some of the actions, not just words, that you can see that I have progressed for you in the last term, and I would continue with passion to do that.
Thank you. So it was a fun term that we went through. You may recall there was, after 12 months, I decided to put through a notice of motion that maybe, hey, why don't we replace the deputy mayor, as is per norm in most councils every 12 months. That led to a 26-minute media conference by the mayor describing my actions as grubby, which was a lot of fun to be sitting there listening to that, not expecting to hear that at all. I was actually expecting to hear a resignation that day from the mayor, but that didn't happen. There was also the opportunity where I decided to disagree on preventing the upgrade of the southern breakwall in Port Macquarie. And that all hell broke loose in that respect as well. So over a number of months, despite all the personal attacks I received from people I don't even know, because I decided that because it's Crown land and a state government project, with state government money, that maybe we should just back off. Apparently that wasn't a good idea according to Team Hinson. Anyway, they didn't realise that I'm made of stronger stuff, strong mentally. I keep most of my emotions in check most of the time. And I also come from the mean streets of Newtown when it was working class a long time ago. So I am Nick Lipovac, mayoral candidate. You'll find Lipovac on the form there as well. If that name's too exotic, just look for Nick and tick that instead. So during this term of council, I've stood up and spoken on many issues, but in particular highlighting our need for that new housing strategy, which we waited on for a while, providing that wider range of homes and doing what we can for the most vulnerable members of our community. I've been working on increasing the number of local businesses that can successfully vie for council tenders, supporting tourism and drawing more events to our region, improving sporting facilities, better road networks, safer beaches, and the list goes on. And listening to your feedback hearing what you have to say. Is that not important? Isn't that what you want from a councillor? So no party politics, preconceived ideas and personal agendas, no more dysfunction, distrust and divisiveness. We need to move forward. Team Libervac, Group D on the ballot paper, that is D for democracy. Thank you.
Now, this concludes the evening. Before we go any further, just like to remind everybody, these guys have given up their time. It's the fourth time they've done it. They, from all intents and purposes, care about you and what you want. Now, I'm not from this area, as I said, and I said the same thing the other night. It's a shame more people haven't been to listen, because listening to these guys, I really get a feel for how each one of them will look after you people in this community. And they've gone out of the way to let you know and to answer your questions. So please give them a resounding round of applause to thank them for their efforts here tonight. I just want to check, is there any more messages from Greg? All good? Yep. So don't forget the mayoral debate next Monday night, 7 p.m, City Bowling Club. Port City Bowling Club. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time and effort.